Every once in a while I forget to press go. Okay, welcome to tonight's guided meditation. I'm Michael Taft, and as usual I'll lead a 1 hour guided meditation. Hey man. You're welcome to follow along with the guidance or to ignore the guidance and just, do your own thing. As long as you're willing to sit still and be quiet while you do your own thing, then, whatever meditation you want to do is fine. Like I say, it will last about an hour, so if you're not used to sitting on the floor for an hour, it might get a little uncomfortable to sit real still. So, there's still 1 or 2 chairs available if you want to change your mind right now. Other than that, after the sit, I'll talk a little bit, and then we'll get some feedback, see how that was for you, or maybe some questions are bubbling up, or who knows what. So we'll bring a microphone around, and then at the very, very end, we'll do just a little tiny bit of silent meditation together just to round things out. Okay? So let's begin, and let's begin like we've been beginning for a while here, which is with a little bit of stretching. So you get to do what you want to do stretching-wise. I'm going to, do what I'm doing. You can follow me, but of course make sure it works for your body. What I want to do might not be what your body wants to do. But let's begin with one of these. Really opening up your ribs and breathing. Don't open up and then hold your breath. Actually, just breathe here for a moment. Good, and then coming to one side. Open up your side ribs. Breathe. That feels incredibly good if you haven't stretched today. And then going this other way. And then down in front. Very good. And then just shake it out a little bit. And then finally, do some circles with your spine one way, circles with your spine the other way, and then circles back again the first way. And just keep circling, and then what I want you to do is just make the circles smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, until you can't tell if you're making circles or not. And then just let that pause in that indeterminate zone. Am I now sitting still, or am I still kind of minutely circling? And that tends to leave your spine in a nice, open, relaxed place. Good. Now what I'd like to do is invite you to just kind of set the whole structure of your thinking mind aside. Just kind of pull it out and set it on the floor in front of you. You're not going to need it for an hour. It can sit there and think as much as it wants, but you're just not going to engage with all those thoughts. And instead, you're just going to rest as simple, open presence. Right? Remembering that there's nothing to do to generate simple, open presence except not engage with all that thinking. So as long as you've set that aside and you're just resting, present and open, that's it. That's it. And so let's just sit here for a moment. Noticing this spacious awakeness that's always present. As usual, I recommend not getting in some kind of fight with your thinking mind. It's not like, oh, you're wrestling back and forth with it or trying to stop thoughts or trying to change thoughts or anything like that. You're just simply not engaging. And instead coming back to just being present. And open with the awakeness that's always there. Good. And now from this place of simple open presence outside of thought, let's do some chanting. Remember, you don't need your brain for this. I'm just going to basically intone or sing a simple seed syllable. The syllable this week is hum, which we might spell H-O-O-M, something like that, hum. And we'll just chant it for a few minutes. And so just continue to rest as simple presence, simple openness, simple awakeness, natural and easy. And allow from the space itself, the seed syllable hum, to just arise and intone. Okay, so we'll do that together. And as usual, I'm going to do it at a certain frequency, a certain tone, a certain pitch. You do whatever pitch works for your voice. And we all breathe at different times. So overall the room just keeps humming. So let's go. radiating through the space of simple presence. This particular seed syllable, Om, is said to dispel delusion, in this case the delusion of the reality of egoic awareness, and just cut right through that to the radiant core of awakeness and love. And from that place, let's begin just resting again as open awareness. This time though, with a little bit of pranayama. If you want to do alternate nostril breathing, feel free to do that. If you want to do ujjayi breathing, that's what I'm going to demonstrate tonight. So ujjayi breathing, you just take a normal in-breath, and then on the out-breath, you let the out-breath be really long, and you do a kind of thing with your throat that you would do if you were whispering. So here's me whispering, I'm doing that, right? But if I'm not speaking words and I'm breathing through my nose, it sounds like this. Right? I'm making it extra hard so you can hear it, but you don't do it really hard, you do it really gentle. Normal in-breath and just a long kind of hissing out-breath through the nose. Always breathing through the nose. So really what we're doing is just resting as spacious awakeness, but then taking a nice in-breath and then on the out-breath. No matter which pranayama you're doing, remember to sit up straight, don't hunch over, keep your neck and head erect. And for either one, you can continue to repeat the seed syllable mentally with your breathing. So you can do either on the long out breath, be going to yourself mentally like Om, or it's perfectly fine to be like Om, 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 whatever works for you. And then just notice energetically where that is hitting you. But if you want a place to focus, you could focus at your third eye. So just continue with the pranayama, resting as simple openness, and if you want to, you can repeat the seed syllable. So we're going to do this together for a little while here. Either one of these pranayamas is very interesting mix of wakes you up a little bit, but also relaxes you, and furthermore kind of, especially the alternate nostril breathing will kind of, because it's bi-hemispheric stimulation, it kind of regulates the system. Now, feel free to let go of that when you come to the end of your round. Now we're going to do something a little different than what we've done before. The practice here, to begin with, and for the rest of our set, is to just sit as simple, open presence, uninvolved with any thought. But if something comes up and is continuously grabbing your attention, a particularly nagging thought or a difficult body sensation or whatever, and it's kind of like taking you out of just sitting in simple presence over and over again, I want you to temporarily shift attention to it and just really be with that. Not trying to think about it, not trying to analyze it, just simply giving it attention, loving, really, really open, non-judgmental attention for a little while until you feel like you can go back to just sitting as simple presence, and that won't, and that thing may not feel like it's going to bother you as much anymore since you've given it attention. Okay, so the main practice here is to just sit in awakeness that's always been awake, in presence that's always present. Simply not engaging with any stream of thought. If you find yourself engaging with thought, just set it back down, come back to just sitting here, being. And then if anything gets, again, too sticky, something really starts grabbing your attention and taking you out of presence, just take a moment and give it full attention. For a little while, and then accepting it completely. You're not trying to get rid of it, you're not trying to do anything with it, you're not really engaging with the content, you're just aware of it. And then you come back to simply sitting. If sitting in open presence is too difficult, even though there's literally nothing to do, but sometimes our thoughts are very sticky, then feel free to just notice the rising and falling of the breath. It gives you something to kind of, a little bit of something to do. Otherwise, simply sit in open presence with complete permission to do absolutely nothing at all. Don't accomplish anything, don't fix anything, don't do anything. Simply demonstrate your already existing awake presence. And I'll chime back in every once in a while. Good. So again, if there's something that keeps grabbing your attention and you get stuck on it and you're thinking about it and thinking about it, just look at that clearly with tremendous openness and kindness and dispassion. Give it your full attention for a moment without engaging the content. And then again, just let go and come back to simply being present. If it's really, really hard to do, then watch the rising and falling of the breath wave while being present. Otherwise, just be. Remember that our most fundamental being is just awake space, conscious space. And so it takes no effort to do that or be that. That's what's really there. And so all we're doing here is letting go of all the other layers we put on top of that and simply coming back to that. Remembering that we're in a room of other people meditating, so trying to be pretty still and quiet if possible. Good. during the simple presence part, the do nothing part, remember anytime you find yourself doing something at all, just gently drop that. I call this practice dropping the ball for that reason. Just every time you find yourself trying to do anything at all, it's like you've grabbed onto the ball, you're ready to play again. Just drop the ball and come back to being present. Then, again, if you find that something's really interruptive, you can, on purpose, look at that with loving acceptance for a little while, and then come back to doing nothing at all. Engaging with thought is doing something, so we're completely non-engaging. Good. You may notice that this simple presence is very, very still and quite spacious and open. Tremendously peaceful. And quiet. That's our natural being all the time. We just tend to not notice it because we're so involved in our thinking. But if we set the thinking aside, even for a moment, this simple, spacious stillness and real sense of peace is right there. Always, always there. That is what we really are. As an alternative, to paying, loving, accepting attention to any distraction when it gets too sticky. Another thing you can do that's even more powerful is to simply and sincerely ask, to whom is this arising? And then, instead of answering the question with thinking, look. Try to find to whom this is arising. Look very carefully for a few moments and then come back to sitting in open presence. This is like the inquiry method. Hint, if you don't answer that question with a thought like me or, my brain or something, but really look, you won't be able to find to whom it's arising. And that not finding is worth noticing. if you find yourself caught up in thinking, let go of that. If you find yourself trying to do anything, just drop it. If you find yourself trying to do it right, just let go of that. If you find yourself trying to meditate, stop doing that. If you're trying to focus on something, let go of that. If you're trying to improve yourself, just stop. Just let go of all doing of any kind. Just simply rest as the awakeness you always are. Good. Now notice that this simple presence is not only peaceful and still and quiet, it also has kindness and love and joy within it. And so if you've been noticing that, just let that radiate naturally. But if that's a little more elusive, then we're going to do something on purpose here and just, to whatever extent, we can bring up a little feeling of kindness or a little feeling of love or a tiny hint of joy in our experience. Just wish that for those around you, wish that for those whom you love and who you're in relationship and community with, and wish it for all the beings, all the people, all the beings in the world around us. Not just people, not even just animals, but maybe especially animals, and also whatever other kind of beings there might be out there. Just find a little bit of kindness, a little bit of openness, a little bit of love and joy for this much grander cosmos than we normally imagine ourselves to be in. And radiate that out and feel it coming back from all directions. Again, our being is actually doing this all the time, but if that's not apparent, then just generate it on purpose. Just feeling that kindness, that joy, that love naturally pouring forth, radiating out. Again, it doesn't have to be gigantic, it's just there. Even if it's quiet, even if it's subtle. And just feel the beauty of that. And the openness of that. Quality of being able to both give and receive and to listen and to be present. Now this seed syllable we were doing before, hum, is considered to have the power of cutting through. It cuts. What does it cut? Or dispel. It cuts through our delusion, it cuts through our egoic obsession, it cuts through our blindness, it cuts through our addictions, it cuts through our narcissism, it cuts through all of that. Cuts right to the ground, the groundless ground of awakeness and presence that we always are, this beautiful, peaceful, joyous, kind, loving presence that's always there. That is the basis. So let's allow our basic clarity to radiate forth again with the seed syllable hum for a little while together. always been already. Notice the peace, the stillness, the love that's present. Okay, let's end that there. So this basic presence of peace and silence and love and joy is, as I keep saying, it's always available. It's never not there. It's your basic nature, so it can't be anywhere else. And it's not something you have to go find, and it's not something that's you can cultivate or make bigger or better somehow. It's just always there. And what we find ourselves doing is wrapped up in everything else, right? It's one of those things where we spend most of our time looking outward from it at everything else. Looking outward from it at our busyness or our, thing that we're obsessed with or worried about or whatever else, just looking out from it at all the appearance. And we just forget that what's looking, to look at what's looking. And so we can get in this very paradoxical situation where we're running around with all the appearance, trying to fix the appearance so that we feel better, and fix the appearance so that we feel peaceful, and fix the appearance so we can find some joy, and fix what's going on out there so that we can feel resourced or calm or good in some way. And of course, it's helpful to do helpful things, fix things out in the appearance. Why not, right? It's there. It's not like we're ignoring it, but we forget this more fundamental move, which is that the peace and stillness and love and joy that we're trying to find in our experience is what's looking. And all we have to do is set all that down for a minute and kind of like turn the light around and look back at what's looking or notice what's looking. Of course, you can't actually make it an object of attention, but we can kind of back into it and just be the awakeness that's always there, be the joy that's always there, be the love that's always there, the kindness that's always there. That's always available. And even if you kind of suck at it, like you're really bad at letting go and it's hard to look, even doing it a little tiny bit poorly, you'll still feel that peace. You'll still feel a little better because it's big. And so even touching it a little bit and maybe kind of, with not so much confidence, a little shakily touching it is still tremendously worth doing, right? It's what we're looking for. It's what we're trying to get out there with all the things we're trying to stuff into the, screaming hole to make things feel better. None of that is necessary. You just look back into the screaming hole. It's completely full already. Just try it right now. It's right there. It's just, remember, it's not a thought. It's not, and thoughts are part of what I'm talking about is out there. It's the thing that knows the thoughts. That's aware of them. Just notice that. That's not an object. It's not a thing you can pay attention to, but it's a thing you can be. And you've never been anything but that. What's interesting is the more that you rest there, the more you recognize it's peaceful and still, but it's also got a real vibrancy and aliveness and creativity and exuberance to it. It's giving birth to all experience, even our internal experience of thoughts and feelings, but also the external experience of the world and beings and all that, all the time. All the time, just creating, radiating that out continuously in a kind of tremendous birth pang of both love and joy, and also kind of terror. And so, far from it being the case that all this stuff is some kind of big distraction, all this stuff is the exuberant expression of our own source, our own awakeness that we really are. So in the long, long, long run, we'll even come back to all those thoughts, we'll even come back to the mind, we'll even come back to all the feelings, we'll even come back to everything that seems to be a distraction from this peace and stillness of the source, and recognize it's nothing other than the, exuberant expression of this infinitely creative and energized groundless ground of infinite potential. Always radiating forth, always reabsorbing back in. And sometimes it's helpful to just, because we spend so much time out in the field and even in our mental obsessions, setting that all aside and just letting go into the reabsorption part, so to speak, letting go and just sitting as the wide awake, wide open potential. It's just potential. Where we're not even human, we're just awakeness with everything in common, with every kind of being in the universe. So see if you can notice that every once in a while. This is not about, disappearing up your own navel and forgetting the world. It's just not forgetting your own source. And every once in a while, just setting everything down and coming back and plugging in. So, we have a microphone. Are you going to, okay, so if you want to report on your experience, or you have, certain questions bubbling up, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll bring the microphone over to you. Remember, it's going live out to the internet, so, whatever, don't say anything you don't want everyone in the world to hear for the rest of all time. And also, everyone just had a meditation experience, so let's be mindful of our speech. So raise your hand if you have anything you want to offer up.
Hi.
Hi.
I was curious about the pranayama at the start
Sure.
of the practice. A lot of yogic teachers teach breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And I've been curious about this for a long time
Well,
because I know going out through the nose also engages the parasympathetic nervous system. I'm wondering if that was part of your teaching.
yeah, the way I learned it, basically never, ever, ever breathe out your mouth unless you're certain, unless you absolutely have to for some reason. So when we're doing pranayama, we use the nose almost exclusively. There's one or two techniques where you use your mouth, but it's very, very rare. Nose breathing, nose breathing, nose breathing, nose breathing is how I learned it. There's a lot of huge traditional, empirical wisdom behind that, but there's also some quite interesting research recently that really backs that up. So I would say the techniques that have you breathing through your mouth, I wouldn't recommend them. You feel free to ignore my suggestion. Yeah. Two books that are really cool that are pretty recent. One is called Breath by James Nestor. The other one's called Oxygen Advantage by Peter McEwen. Read those. But they'll both tell you to never breathe out your mouth or breathe in your mouth also. What else? You're gonna derp.
I'm pretty sure the answer is ignore it, it's a distraction, but I was...
Ignore it, it's a distraction.
When I was meditating open-eyed and your shirt with thing in the back, that's
Yeah.
so psychedelic, the whole room is bubbling and...
Right?
Ignore it, it's a distraction.
Well,
Or just enjoy, I was enjoying it. And
kind of neither. It's like, don't engage. If it's there and it's being cool, that's great, but that sort of like absorbed into it, at least for this technique, you're just coming back to just being present with that, but not particularly into it. Okay? Doesn't mean other times, other techniques you wouldn't, but for this, it's more like, okay.
Okay, that's interesting. So in other techniques, it might be enjoyable to let it happen or use it for insight that
Sure,
the vision
absolutely.
is instructed or...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's more of a shamatha object. It's an object. This is what we were doing is objectless shamatha. So it's just a little slight difference. No big deal. You don't go to meditation hell for doing it. You're fine.
I'll actually take the mic.
Uh-oh.
Did you say uh-oh because I'm about to shot?
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little about involuntary movement that's happening?
I knew it was, yeah.
It's been happening a lot in my practice lately, and it's very powerful in this corner of the meditation room. And I find that it's not very peaceful, but it's
Sure.
not upsetting.
Yeah. So I'm asking you this very, very consciously. Was it voluntary?
It doesn't feel voluntary.
Right. And so those kind of involuntary motions are called kriya, right? Which just means motion or doing. Often people will put like a English plural on it and call it kriyas, fine. But it's involuntary. So what's happening is certain types of stored tensions, stored stuff
Yeah.
is releasing. And so you just kind of let it do that. On the other hand, if you're in a room full of people and it's real distracting, because some kriyas are not just movements in the sort, even even though they're called that, the wider range of kriyas can be things like laughing and crying, or feeling your temperature go way up or go way down, or I've seen people rolling around on the floor and stuff, and it's totally involuntary. So when they reach that level in a group, you kind of tamp it down a little bit, because even though it's involuntary, you can voluntarily stop it a little bit, you know.
But the best course is to really let it do
Let it do its thing, but remember that like you don't want to focus on it or get into it as like, oh, the kriyas are happening, cool, you know. Just they're happening. Someday they'll have run their course, and then it won't happen anymore. But it's super common, and in some traditions they're just like don't move at all anyway. In other like I've been in other places where they're letting people roll around the floor, scream and stuff. And in fact, it's interesting. This is the thought of where a lot of yoga postures come from, because I've seen people go into spontaneous yoga postures who don't know any yoga. It's part of how the body releases. So at least some yoga postures are like reverse engineering that. Like, oh, we saw people do this, so let's. But in any case, you just sort of let them take their course, and eventually that will have released. And so it's not like, oh, it's happening, so that's good, because eventually it won't happen anymore. But neither is it a bad thing. It's just one of our ways that we kind of, the system releases stuff.
Because as I was feeling, I was paying attention a little bit to the energy as it's moving through my body. I was wondering if it was, like, and then when you were giving instruction, I was kind of I felt like I was actually having a harder time hearing the instruction from you in that place. But
Yeah, just let it do what it's doing.
I will, thank you.
Sometimes they can be emotional too. There's emotional kriyas, all kinds of stuff. I think we have a question here, or a raised hand here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So sometimes when I tap into the spacious, loving everything, something in my body is like, holy fuck. It's like, shit, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that sort of like brings me out of it.
Sure. What kind of whoa, whoa, whoa is it?
It's amazing.
Right. Oh, really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool. But then I'm not. Is there a way to like be in the body and in the everything?
Yeah. I can't imagine you getting really excited about anything.
That's not it.
Yeah. But you know, it's. I mean, honestly, the best way to answer that is just say, just do it a lot, till eventually it's like, oh yeah, this is great, instead of like, oh my god, right? Like, you just sort of noticed it enough times that you can be a little more nonchalant about it.
Do I have to be?
You do if it knocks you up into your ego that wants to own it and all that, because then you're not there anymore, right? So it's just a matter of the other way to describe the nonchalance is you're so spacious that you're not trying to grab onto it or own it or categorize it or make it into a thing, right? Just let it be as awesome as it really is. And the idea is not that, oh, now I'm bored of it, and so, you know, it's that it will become even more awesome, but you're more in it rather than sort of on the edge and kind of trying to grasp. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll practice.
So just go there a bunch.
Great.
Tonight I felt more in my own space throughout much of the meditation. but previous times I've really felt in the soup of the group,
Uh-huh.
and I've wondered if you could talk about that sort of interaction and kind of moving between self-space and awareness and the group, and sort of how we navigate, why do we do this in a group, and yeah, what is that group experience like for you?
If you go back far enough in meditation traditions, it all started out in group meditations, right? We kind of think it started like with single people in caves or something, but it's actually was very common to have big group meditations. And as you notice, when you're in the field, like can be a lot more powerful than when you're on your own. It's part of why we do the mantras out loud together and stuff, because it really makes that energy of the field really apparent, right? And it's the case that sitting in the room with other people who are also doing this, we are social creatures, and we have a lot of we gather a lot of clues from everyone around us and so on, and so there's a sense that it makes it a lot easier. It's part of why I ask people not to move very much, because if sitting up here, it's really obvious when someone's moving a lot, it ripples out and other people around them start moving a lot. It's just, there's just a lot of group response. And so it just turns out to be really extra powerful to do it as a group. But more deeply, the essence of what we're talking about here is that there aren't any other people. Not in the sense of a solipsistic sense of I'm the only person, but in the other sense of that we're all, one source. And so the group meditation can help to make that a little more apparent sometimes. Or we're all one, is a better way to say that. Okay, let's do the bumper, the little extra meditation here, just a few minutes, like 5 minutes of complete silent meditation. thanks for coming out and sitting with me tonight. Remember that, well, first of all, please help to put the cushions back. Secondly, remember that, you know, the lobby is open. We can hang out, have snacks, have some tea, talk to each other. That's a nice thing to do. And furthermore, just reminding you all of that Alembic is a nonprofit, and we keep the doors open for anyone to come and meditate, regardless of any, you know, payment. You can come for free as much as you want, but also, you know, we still have to pay for the room and pay for the lights and pay for the heat and pay for everything. So if you are able to contribute to this 501c3 nonprofit, we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. All right, so thank you very much. See you next week.